And then we looked at the overall bid, flew to California, and sat down with Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Dale Yoakum and said, we have to bid on this contract. And they said, well, what do you think we should bid? And I said, $752.50.
Wow.
And Steve and Dale sat there and said, what's the 50 cents for? I said, for luck. I'm Irish and we don't know what's going to happen, so I'll just play it for luck. And they said, okay. So they approved the price. We went to the bid. They opened the bids. This is all public domain information now. So they opened the bids. I think Radio Shack was first, reverse order, R. Radio Shack was like $783. So we knew we beat them. IBM was $753. So we knew we'd beat them by 50 cents.
Oh my Lord, are you kidding me right now?
Commodore was like $769. And then Apple A was last. And they said $752.50. And people are like, are you kidding me? You guys just won by 50 cents a computer.
Wow.
So it turned into be the largest educational computing contract Apple's ever been awarded.
Wow.
Yeah.
All thanks to your 50 cents?
My 50 cents.
Oh my Lord, we wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, so.
Are you kidding me right now?
Phone silent. Yeah. I think you called me beforehand.
Yeah, he's a nice. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. This is my friend, my good friend Gary.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
How you doing?
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, come
Some
on
nice
in.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had no idea this is all back here.
You didn't? Where are you at?
I'm over off by the village in Meridian.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of the same stuff over there, too.
You don't
But,
make it down here very often?
Not in this area, but it's kind of cool down here now.
It's popping.
I went to Talaya, the wine place.
Yeah.
Which I was very impressed with that, and their wine's actually good too, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
Got
we
you a little
stay.
gift? Got you a little gift from me on the show?
Oh man, oh thanks, thank you.
We stay at that Riverside Hotel all
Oh
the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
My
nice
son
place.
and I.
Yeah, very nice.
Good times.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
What a great setup.
How's your Saturday going?
I got some glasses if you want to crack that. If not, no big deal.
I think I'll wait a little bit. I'm gonna run a few more errands, but I actually went to the range this morning.
Oh, wow.
The golf
Some
range? Or the
No,
shooting?
range. I'm a range safety officer. I teach
are?
CCW classes.
You do?
Yeah, so I have to practice a little bit because they always want to see you shoot. Which is kind of fun. But thanks. What a cool setup.
Thanks.
So I got my mom a gun.
You did.
But she needs to learn how to use it. So.
Well, we're going to run a CCW class in August.
Okay.
It's Thursday and a Friday night.
We send me that info. So
yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
You've got yours, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. This is the enhanced class.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of fun. So how long have you been here?
I've been here 3 years.
Okay.
This
From Boise originally?
No, Salt Lake City originally.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been in Boise 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, moved
Okay.
here in 2010,
I met you in 2011, I think.
2013.
2013.
Beginning of
I was gone in
2013.
2011, yeah.
Yeah.
2013, yeah.
Okay, so I'm an Apple guy, so give me the tech you're running a little bit, just so I know what's behind the
Yeah, I mean,
scenes here.
MacBook Pro, older one, I don't even know what year it was. iPad Pro, and then
What software you're running now?
on
What app are you running?
this is called Mevo. So these are 3 remote Bluetooth cameras.
Oh, Nate. Okay, Mevo.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
very cool.
Then we got a little GoPro right there that captures the whole wide
Yeah,
angle, the
Nice.
whole room.
very
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, so I do know, I'm really excited to have you on here, obviously, because I know a little bit about you, but I know you started with Apple. Well, it didn't start with Apple. Let's go with, where did you start?
Yeah, are you from Boise?
No, from Charlotte, North Carolina,
Okay.
originally. Yeah,
Nice. When were you born?
1954.
1954.
Yeah, it was a good
Hot
year.
damn. Totally different world.
Yeah, very different world.
Very different world.
Yeah, so I graduated from college in 1978 in Charleston, South Carolina, which is the Citadel, a military school.
Okay.
And when I left the Citadel, I worked for my dad's company for 2 years, but one of my first projects was to install a Honeywell computer. My undergraduate
No
degree is in
way.
history.
I sold Honeywell alarm
Yeah.
systems. That's
History.
awesome.
History.
Yeah. So, but I worked for my dad, and he goes, "We're putting a new computer. I'd like you to manage the project." And I said, "Okay." So I went to school on learning how to install a computer.
Wow.
And then I learned how to operate the computer. And then the Wall Street Journal did a story on our company and how we were using computers to manage industrial production.
Wow, and this is in the late 70s.
It's late 70s.
Wow.
Early 80s, yeah. So this small company in Cupertino called Apple heard about me and said, hey, we'd like you to interview for a job as a district sales manager. And I actually went in for the interview and then said, I don't have any interest in joining the company.
What?
And they said, how come? And I said, well, you guys make these dinky little computers that we use in the back to kind of burn EPROMs. I don't think it's going to be much fun.
Yeah.
And they sat there for a minute, the HR manager, and I'll never forget this, Sarah Cohen. She's looking at me and she's just smiling. And I finally said, there's something I'm supposed to ask you, right? And she goes, yeah. Now I'm 26 years old. And I said, how much does it pay? And she says, starting salary is $120,000 a year with a $120,000 commission plan for a $250,000 total package.
Wow.
And I said, you know that no I said a minute ago?
Yeah, for
I'd
sure.
like to take that back.
Just kidding.
Exactly.
I'll start today. Call Dad. Hey, I'm not coming home.
We still laugh about that today.
I
we
bet. Wow. Talk about divine intervention, though.
Yeah,
like
it's pretty
something
funny.
I needed to ask something.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then I told my father I was leaving the company to work for Apple, and he goes, do you know how weird it is that you're working for a company named after a fruit? And I said, well, maybe it might be worth something someday. You know, you never know. So,
Hot damn.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So I was with the company about 30 days, and then they said to me, hey, listen, there's this really big contract for the state of Tennessee to put computers in all the schools. If you win the contract, we can probably keep you as an employee. And I said, well, that would have been nice to know before I took the job, you know, at least to know what the risk factors are. So we had no rep in Tennessee, so I had to hire a woman on the phone. I hired a rep. And then we looked at the overall bid, flew to California, and sat down with Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Dale Yoakum and said, we have to bid on this contract. And they said, well, what do you think we should bid? And I said, $752.50. Wow. And Steve and Dale sat there and said, what's the 50 cents for? I said, for luck. I'm Irish and we don't know what's going to happen, so I'll just play it for luck. And they said, okay. So they approved the price. We went to the bid. They opened the bids. This is all public domain information now. So they opened the bids. I think Radio Shack was first, reverse order, R. Radio Shack was like $783. So we knew we beat them. IBM was $753. So we knew we'd beat them by 50 cents.
Oh my Lord, are you kidding me right now?
Commodore was like $769, and then Apple A was last, and they said $752.50, and people are like, are you kidding me? You guys just won by 50 cents a computer.
Wow.
So it turned into be the largest educational computing contract Apple's ever been awarded.
Wow.
Yeah.
All thanks to your 50 cents?
My 50 cents.
Oh, my Lord. We wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't for you.
Yeah, so.
Are you kidding me right now?
And then a couple of months later, I got asked to move to California to head up Apple education. So putting computers in schools and colleges.
So you got the job.
So I got the job.
Yeah.
So I got to keep my job.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, so every 2 years, we have a reunion in Cupertino. It's called the Apple First group. It's the people that were there the first 10 years.
Yeah.
Apple's very small back then. And always the night before, I have a big education party. So we have about 450 people to get together the night before and just kind of celebrate how we were able to put computers in schools and colleges. So kind of fun.
That is so incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Ran that for a couple of years and then got asked to run to Washington, D.C. to run Apple Federal. Apple has a defense intelligence group that calls on the government. And I went to Washington, ran that for a number of years, and then decided to retire, got married. First child was born, Ian. And then I got recruited by Verifone. Verifone makes the great terminals you slide your credit card through.
Yeah.
So I got recruited back to Verifone. Started out running the consumer division, then became the chief marketing officer. Then they set up a COO position, so I took that. And we thought when the internet came along, someone might want to buy something, kind of a novel idea, shop on the internet and then pay for it.
So this is what you
can't stuff dollars into a computer. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you had to be able to process a credit card. Verifone had all the patents for credit card processing on the internet. So Microsoft, Netscape, Oracle, eBay, everybody had to use our patents.
Wow.
And then Hewlett Packard came along and decided to buy us. So we had, and then Citicorp, EDS, IBM, NCR all got in the game. And so we sold Verifone for $1.2 billion, which was the fourth largest deal in the world that year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so out of a job again. And then spent the next 10 years in venture capital with a firm called Redleaf, doing early stage venture investing. And then we moved to Idaho as a quality of life decision. And moved here in 2004.
Because you were in Pittsburgh while
you're doing
venture
Before
capital.
here?
Yeah, I was in California in Pittsburgh. And then we moved here and raised the kids here. And both kids went to Coal Valley, and then both went to Boise State. And then Caitlin went to Academy of Art University in California. So that's kind of my world, is tech and payment, and now involved in healthcare.
Wow. Yeah,
Well,
That's a long story.
That's
Sorry about that.
fantastic.
No, that's a great story.
Man, my mind is just blown.
I feel like we haven't even hit like the biggest project that I feel like you're working on, and that's the current one, because I feel like this is going to blow up, and that's, am I allowed to say Critica?
Sure. Yeah, we've
Critica.
announced it. Yeah.
I feel like that one is going to blow up larger than all of these other ones, just because there's no one else on the market doing what you guys are doing.
All right.
And I read before I came here that it was something like a high billion number, maybe in the hundreds of billions of money stolen from companies.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If hackers were a country, it'd be the 12th richest company in the world based on all the money they've stolen in ransomware. So about 2 years ago, a friend of mine is a PhD out of Bell Labs named Carrie Nimovitcher in Reno. And I were sitting around talking about how do we solve HIPAA compliance in a hospital at a nurse's station. Because what happens, nurses will log on to your records, and then something will happen. They jump up and they run to the room.
Leaving the door wide open.
Leaving the door wide open for anybody to look at the screen, and that's a HIPAA violation. Well, we ultimately realized we couldn't solve that problem because it requires a human to do something, right? You got to get them to turn it off or pull a plug or something. But we began to talk about what's really wrong in cybersecurity. What we talked about is, and this is kind of the unspoken part of cyber attacks. When malware first arrives on a network, it's called the malware arrival date. Think of it as MAD, M-A-D. That's when it arrives. But when it arrives, it does nothing. It sits there like a spider, just watches and learns and captures all this information. But most cyber malware applications on your computer are trained to look for things they've seen before. Repetition. And so if it doesn't move and it's designed in a way they've never seen it before, they don't know it's there.
Right.
And so the time between arrival and infection is called dwell time. Dwell. On average, it used to be about 187 days. Now it's about 217 days between arrival and infection. And that's why all these big companies get hacked, because until it does something, they don't know it's there.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're running Norton or McAfee or whatever. So we said, if you could find something as soon as it arrives and change the dwell time, that could change everything. And so we actually focused on trying to close the dwell time gap from 180 days to 180 seconds.
You want to find out it's there as quick as
Within 3
possible and
minutes.
do something about
Right.
it. Yeah.
Because if I can spot it right away, I can turn that server off or that computer and then isolate it and figure out what is it.
Right. Because it's learning all the patterns of the users.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so one of the other challenges...
It's going to know you better than you know yourself.
Yeah, the average size of malware malware protection software today, like Norton, is about 1.2 gigabits, pretty big, which is why most people run it at night.
Right.
Because it takes a lot of your computing power to kind of run itself.
Oh, yeah.
We thought that was a bad idea because of the Bluetooth cameras, and your Apple Watch and your Ring doorbell are all IP devices. Your printer is an endpoint. And so I can infect any of these devices if I want to.
Yeah.
So the problem is I can't stuff a 1.2 gigabit software in that little IoT device. It won't fit.
Right.
So we designed a probe that's 100 kilobits. in size.
Hmm.
And that's how we were constantly dropping probes into the data stream. And as soon as something arrives, we go, that's new.
Right.
We don't know what that is, but it wasn't there a minute ago. So we immediately isolate and then identify.
Interesting.
And that's what Critica does, is we invented these tiny probes.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So that's not where she works.
She's done some work for us.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's done some side work.
She did some side work for us.
Yeah, she's doing like the market or helping with the marketing on that side. And then she still works for Engage, which is, I really don't even, because I've heard dentistry, I've heard, I've heard so many different things that you guys do at Engage.
I'm involved in 4 ventures. So Critica is one of my newer ones. We just launched that last Tuesday. And we were amazed at the reaction so far. And people are going, wow, never saw this coming. Right. So I think we're onto something. We'll see. It takes time.
Yeah.
I'm involved in a company called Engage Technology in Boise. And Engage pairs short form videos with complex medical procedures to help patients understand what's going to happen and what decisions they have to make. So, for example, in the world of cataracts, someday everyone has a cataract. It's the number one surgery in the world. Because over time,
that's right. I remember reading that in
it doesn't matter.
Diamante's
it doesn't
book.
matter what your DNA is.
Right.
You're going to have a cataract someday. It's just the cloudiness of the eyeball, of the lens. So nowadays you have 2 options. You can get a basic lens covered by Medicare, which most people are over 65 when this happens, and so you kind of get okay vision. They also have a lens called a premium lens, which gives you near, mid-range, and far vision, kind of like when you were 20 years old again. I mean, really, really great vision. Right. The problem is it's about $3,500 per eye over and above Medicare.
Oh.
So you got to come out of pocket for the difference.
You just cut a lot of people out.
Don't want to do it. But nowadays, you've got a bunch of baby boomers that are golfers or sailors or pilots, and they're kind of going, I really would like to have better vision. So we make the videos that help explain the difference between the basic lens and the premium. Before we launched this program, the conversion rate on average among ophthalmologists was probably 15%, which means 15% of the patients would say, I'll take the premium lens. Mm-hmm. After watching our videos, their conversion rate is somewhere between 45% and 200%.
Oh my gosh.
So it's the same number of patients coming in the door, but now they're taking the premium lens and getting better vision for it.
And then the doctor pays you the licensing fee to use the videos?
They subscribe the videos from us. And so it's all cloud-based.
That's
it
so
looks like it's
easy.
coming from the doctor.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's coming from your practice.
Right.
And
it's white labeled to them?
Exactly, white labeled all the time. So we're in dentistry, ophthalmology, optometry, oral surgery. We're in plastic surgery, dermatology, and we just launched into orthopedics with hip, knee, and spine. So the goal is to keep going. But it's also, we're trying to pair that moment when you have the height of interest as a patient and the moment of need on information. I have to make a decision on what I want to do.
Right.
And so we're helping them make that decision.
Right, trying to bring them...
Correct. And so we work with some of the biggest companies in the world to do that, like Alcon, Johnson & Johnson, people like that. So that's Engage in Boise.
Dang. That's a lot like Galactic. It's essentially the intention is to make short form videos to help people understand digital assets.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody knows. In fact, we're already kind of thinking about, used to be, people wouldn't watch more than 6 minutes on YouTube.
Bingo.
Right. Now it's down to 90 seconds per video.
Damn
for
TikTok.
Education. I was going to say that. And then now there's TikTok, which is 15 seconds,
Oh my gosh.
I don't believe you can educate people with TikTok. I think you can entertain them. I don't think you can educate them. So
you can hook them into your system.
Yeah, you can maybe get them started with TikTok, and then you got to migrate them to a little bit longer streams, because what I think has happened with COVID, which I think is a huge opportunity for guys like Galactic too, is micro LMS is unfolding, and continuing education. People aren't going to go to places to do this anymore. They're going to do it online.
100%.
And so I think there's a whole world of micro LMSs that's going to unfold where people can learn online and get tested. So if you're going to test somebody on competency, you've got to give them enough information and then give them a test, which is why 90 seconds, I think, is going to be the norm.
Wow. So 90 seconds.
90
you
seconds.
Want to describe something.
And then drip the
good
next
to know.
one. So 90 seconds, take a test.
Right.
Excellent. You've got to keep dripping. Okay?
Yes.
So I may be giving you 15 minutes of knowledge, but I'm giving it to you in 7 drips.
Right.
Over 14 days.
Oh, I get it. And then they get the reward every time they
Correct.
pass the
Every
test.
time they pass the test.
Could even entice them with
And
some
the last thing
crypto.
that pops up is you get a digital certificate, or maybe you get some Bitcoin and say, hey, congratulations.
Bingo.
Now that you've passed this, here's your reward.
Yes.
Cash it in at eBay or whatever you want to do.
Right. That's
So
exactly
I think
what
there's
I like
a whole
to do.
new world of learning management unfolding that's going to really change a lot of things.
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, so
How do you think that like your passion for history ties in with your life's journey?
that's a funny question. I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer. And so a lot of people that go pre-law take history or
Right.
English. And then my father, he set me down one. I never forget this. It was my junior year in college. And he goes, do you want to be a lawyer, or would you rather have lawyers work for you someday? I thought, that's an interesting question. And so I decided to take my degree and just kind of go into the business world. I think there's 3 things about being a history major that are helpful. One is we're good at doing research on things and trying to learn what happened.
Right.
And I think history repeats itself. So technology is never revolutionary. It's always evolutionary. We build on top of the thing that came before.
100%.
And so I think that's the first part. The second thing is we're not encumbered by much technology bias because we don't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
I used to laugh and say to Steve Jobs, the reason why I can do my job is that I don't have to think about what's inside the box.
Right.
I can think about how it's helping the classroom. I think the third and last piece is most history majors write well, communicate well.
Yeah.
And that helped as well. But I don't recommend it for a technology career to be a history
Yeah.
major.
But I think everything always works out. It's
Yeah.
always meant to happen. So the reason why I ask is, like, if you extrapolate out, let's say 100 years, where do you think this reality's going? With VR, the metaverse, crypto.
Yeah. We're at such an inflection point. I when I think about all the things that have been invented and that I was a part of the invention, I laughed when I first saw the iPhone because a lot of my team were involved in the development. I said, you're going to create a bunch of people that look down all the time. And if you walk into an airport, that's all you see is people looking down as they sit at their seats, and we laughed about it. But, I think it's causing a whole new world of ethics to be defined. I think that's the biggest thing because nation states are changing, ethics are changing. Everybody suddenly has a voice. Everybody can have their few minutes of fame. Disinformation is everywhere. And so I think one of the challenges in this century is to try to figure out the difference between truth and fiction. And also, if the sum of human knowledge is now on the internet, what do we do with it to make life better?
Yeah.
And my generation is not going to have that impact. Your generations are. And so, but I do think it's going to take a whole generation of people that say, we have to recalibrate the ethics around the knowledge we now have.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I got to assume, because to me, in the grand scheme of things, you're still young. And within the next 25 years, there will be advancements in medical technology that might extend your life another 100 years.
It could. I like to say that this is the election in 2024, or maybe 2026, maybe the last major election that my generation really has an impact on because we're moving by.
Yes,
there's more
the dinosaurs are dying.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. I noticed that James Caan passed away 2 days ago.
Yes.
And so you're starting to watch a lot of these, celebrities you grew up with kind of pass away. But I do think that in my lifetime, I think 10% of my body will be silicon, not carbon. It'll be hip, knee, spine. It'll be some combination. Yeah. I think visual and auditory technologies will help me hear and see longer. I think that maybe even brain implants will change the way we deal with Alzheimer's. I think we'll solve that in my lifetime. So I think there's a lot of things on the horizon. But the biggest thing I worry about is, what do we do with all this information? Because you see so many people abusing the information. I'm watching the Ukrainian-Russian war unfold, and it's as much a battle of information as it is of rockets and missiles.
I think the new war is about information
it's about
more
information.
than... Yeah.
So I just hope that we remain really good at it, but don't lose our ethics as a country. That's what I probably worry about.
That's why I love blockchain so much, because it really takes away the opportunity of moving forward. You can't really hide anything from anybody, right? And I feel like moving forward, as long as we can adapt to the blockchain and everyone can kind of figure it out, right? You're just going to have so much. You can't really hide anything from anybody. It's all out in the open.
Yeah.
So everything, like if I tell you something, you're like, hey, let me see your NFT. Like, hey, I've done all these jobs, right? Let me see your NFT. It's like, you only done this job. Why did you tell me?
The internet already started that. Social media started. Things are becoming more transparent. What do you think about, because the generation running the show right now is your generation.
Is it?
For the most part, all the leaders of the world, actually, they might be...
Politically, I would agree with you. Yeah.
Well, politics create the rules of monopoly.
Yeah, I would agree.
So they are running on a different set of morals and ethics than my generation.
Correct. And they're also running with what I think is a poor background of how technology is unfolding and changing the world today.
Amen.
We dealt early on with remote work, okay? There's a whole generation that would say, what do you mean you're not going to go to work? How can you work from home? How can you be effective?
It's a paradigm shift.
The answer is it's easy. The technology exists. The software exists. The communication technology exists. The way workers are willing to work works now. There's a whole generation of people that kind of say, I'm fine. We used to say at Apple, someday, after every kid graduates from the Macintosh, they're going to carry this into the business world, and we will dominate the workforce. That was our whole strategy.
What?
Sell computers to kids in college, and then bring them into the workforce. That's how Apple became strong in corporate America.
How close were you with old Steve?
I worked for him for 2 years.
You ever give him a high five or anything?
No, he wasn't that kind of guy.
Okay, so never any personal time.
No, not well. It was just business time.
Because you knew about he was down with LSD and he went to India and that part of his life.
That was earlier than Apple when he did that. It's all in the movie. But but Steve was a really interesting guy. If you liked the Macintosh, he liked you a lot.
Of course,
that was his baby.
Yeah.
But no, I think that you're right about the politics, and I think. I kind of wish that we would go to Washington every now and then and give Congress a primer on technology and how it can be used today, because I still don't think they understand it very well.
Well, here's a concept for you. Look at our physical body is like the hardware, like your phone. Right. Your consciousness is the software. You right on the cusp that you did get the download. A lot of the people that are in politics, their hardware doesn't support the software.
That's correct.
They don't have empathy. They don't have compassion.
I also think they don't, any of them don't have a great moral compass. Somebody was teasing me the other day that said, why don't you run for the House or Senate? And I said, well, I can tell you a couple of reasons right away. I said, first of all, I went to college. Second is my parents were married. Third, I use rational thought to solve complex issues. And fourth and final, I have this strange tendency to tell the truth all the time. So I'd make a terrible politician, right?
Yeah, oh my Lord. Well, you know a lot of the statistics then that I've thought about a lot with people's upbringing that would even make them attracted to that in the first place.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to tell somebody else what to do.
Yeah, no way, because I can't stand being told what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's hey, if I want unbridled freedom, I have to give that to everybody else too.
Exactly.
But I was thinking about it during our meeting today. Was there Dr. Dang it, geodesic dome? You might.
Buckminster Fuller.
That's right. He says that rather than trying to fix the old system, is we just invest in the new. So their system, the pillars on top of which our culture is built on, money, politics, those are eroding away. And they're being replaced by this new technology. Yeah, and so rather than us looking at their system and blaming or shaming or thinking it should change, just invest in the new system.
Sure.
Theirs is imploding. Their lies are now backfiring on them. I've never voted. I think it's It's all a rigged game. But man, if you look on TV and you see that guy that they all say is the leader, holy cow, I wouldn't follow that guy to the garbage can. He can't even, it's wild. But it also tells me their days are numbered because of all the lies, all the corruption, all the manipulation that's now exposed every day. It's waking people up. Yeah. And now they're seeking out solutions. Like as their dollar crashes, they're losing control. And as this new money system that's decentralized, so it's based on those different morals and ethics that you spoke of.
Well, but the rules haven't been written on that yet either. And that's one of the challenges.
That's right. That's right.
As you know, one of the ways you calculate the value of GDP in a country is based on the amount of money flowing through the economy. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how do you value a dollar? You value it based on the amount of money in circulation, the amount of money that's currently available, M1, M2.
Yeah. One
of the challenges with Bitcoin, and we talked about this, is until governments can figure out a way to track Bitcoin technology, which is not designed to do, right? It's not designed. But until that happens, governments are going to fight it because they can't count it.
Yeah.
And if you can't count it, they don't know what it's worth.
And because they can't count it, they'll never win.
No. Yeah, but that's going to be the fight for a long time. Is the governments want to count it, and the technology is kind of goes designed not to do that.
They're so far behind, and their whole creation, the dollar, it's now in exponential decline of value. Even the Fed's own numbers show over 98% loss in purchasing power since 1913. So it's a mathematical certainty that the dollar will go to zero.
Well, but all the others will before then, because the dollar is the highest valued currency in the world.
Exactly. So when that does happen, I mean, it's the second coming, my man.
So here's what I hope for. I hope for the concept and technology called a synthesizer, like on Star Trek, where you can synthesize anything. Because if you can synthesize anything someday, then you won't need money.
Total abundance.
You know, so I'm into that part. I always liked it when Gene Roddenberry wrote the original Star Trek. He had this idea that if you can synthesize anything, then therefore you need no money.
Right.
So, and I'm kind of hoping
I'm with
that
you.
Some of these technologies someday appear. I know that the tricorder is something they showed very early in Star Trek, which was a way of scanning your body and getting your vital signs. It's actually being developed now. It takes about 30 years from concept to reality. But I actually saw a prototype of a tricorder. So, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting technologies. And, you know, the challenges are going to be social, I think, and political, not technology.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And I hope that the next generation of leaders understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I always get fascinated that in a country of 330 million people, we can't nominate better people to be president.
Because the system's become beyond corrupted.
It's broken.
Yeah.
But it's like Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government in the world, except for all the others.
Yeah, 100%.
It's true, right?
So then I mean, I guess just speaking for myself is I just have faith that everything's unfolding so perfectly that our little monkey minds could never understand its perfection. So I look at that system, and although it, as a software system, it has become corrupted beyond repair. So I just have faith, and I look at it with gratitude. It got us to where we are now, but now it's obsolete. And I actually already see its replacement. And evolution doesn't happen like a light switch.
It takes some time.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the great things about the American model, which I've always admired, is it's kind of an experiment the way the whole thing is designed.
Yeah.
They put the power in the states, right? And there are 50 individual states that have the power to try different things. And then what works well, usually the federal government adopts it and makes it a national program like Social Security or stuff like that. It's one of the few places in the world where every day young kids wake up and say, I can knock off a big company.
Yeah.
No other company in the world, no other country in the world did the students sit in classrooms going, I'm going to build a company that's going to destroy taxis. I'm going to call it Uber.
Yeah.
Okay? Americans are, and even the immigrants that come here are uniquely inclined to be disruptive. And so I think at some point that same disruption is going to have the same kind of impact on our society that it has on everything else.
Yeah.
So
do you think those ideals over the last 50 years have spilt over into other countries like China, India?
Well, so I think India and China are very different countries.
Oh,
India
yeah.
is the largest democracy in the world, and there's some great people there, incredibly smart.
Yeah.
It's just so big, and the infrastructure is so poor.
Right.
That's one of their big challenges. But I've worked in Bangalore for 3 years, and love the people. And they're incredibly bright. China, it's to me, China's the most capitalist country in the world, even though they say they're communist.
Yeah.
Because every city fights for other cities to get you to do business with them there. And so, they were communist. They've been communist 50 years. They've been Chinese for 10,000 years. I think that this is probably a blip in their history. And at some point, the same social upheavals are going to happen there that happen everywhere else. You can't subjugate that many people that long. So
it's just pressure in the cooker.
Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time.
But they're two different countries,
Oh, yeah, for sure. But just like going back to your point is as far as, especially in 2022, kids in both India and China, I would guess that they more than ever before, or I should say at least in the last few hundred years, believe that I could change the world.
I think that's more so today.
Yeah.
But, I think that one of the problems China has is keeping employment going for everything.
In China?
Yeah, in China.
Oh,
Making
really?
sure everybody has a job.
Oh,
I mean, when I first,
yeah, geez, that billions of people?
When I first went to Beijing...
Yeah, that is a problem.
You'd look out on the interstate, and there would be women out there sweeping with brooms on the interstate because it was a job, right? And if a car hit one and killed them, they would just stop, throw them in the car, and carry them off. But it was a job. You'd see men crawling on their knees with hand clippers. And you'd say, what are they doing? And they'd say, well, they're mowing the grass. There'd be a lot of them, like 10 of them walking along, but everybody had a job. So I think that what's happening now in China is you've got a whole middle class that's become more affluent.
Yeah.
And they're looking around going, why don't I have the same rights as other people around the world? And so it's just math. When there's
exactly.
enough of them say, and a generation dies off, right?
Right.
Then it'll change.
Yeah.
So
we just gotta wait.
Yeah. So what all do we want to cover here today? I've kind of
that is what we're doing, man. Let me just 30 minutes. That's all we do. Yeah.
Okay.
No, this has been mind blowing.
Yeah. We never plan anything out. We
okay.
just
Well,
yeah. No.
Topics,
yeah.
Well, here's another project I'm involved in right now, which is called My Why.
My Why.
My Why, and it's WYE. Yeah. And a Y is if a train's coming along and it's an intersection, it can go right or left. That's called a Y.
Yeah.
In train terminology. So a friend of mine is a divorce lawyer down in Beverly Hills, California.
Oh my gosh.
And he always found that women were always at a disadvantage in a divorce because it was usually the husband making most of the money, and he kind of planned carefully to shield assets along the way. And so his job is to try to peel the onion and find all the assets. And he got to thinking about it. He said, I think that we could actually build a network of advisors around the country that want to work with a disadvantaged person in the divorce. And so a lawyer, a forensic accountant, a financial advisor, a therapist, all these people come together and build a website that matches them. And so I got involved because their technology wasn't working. So I brought a team in to fix the tech for them. And I said, I think you guys are thinking about this wrong. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, what you're really trying to do is help someone get through a catastrophic life event, which could be a divorce, could also be the loss of a spouse. It could also be a debilitating illness like Alzheimer's that comes along. Either under all three scenarios, that person is almost paralyzed intellectually and financially for 6 months. And so why not make it bigger? And so we actually ran a small pilot in Los Angeles, and it was crazy, the response. And so we're going to be launching My Why later this year.
Wow, no way.
So it's a national service.
How do you find these projects?
I get dragged into them.
Oh, really? So they find you?
They found me, yeah.
Wow.
And that's for some help.
There was something in like Dubai or something in the Middle East that Kate was telling me about, maybe a patent or something along those lines that you were interviewing.
So Saudi Aramco has a portfolio of patents that they were developing to better monitor the people working on the oil rigs. Because it's hot and they get heat stroke.
Yeah, of course.
And so they were designing vests that would read their perspiration level and respiration and heart rate and BP and things like that. And they filed all these patents around the world. So there's like 22, 23 countries the patents have been filed in. And they really didn't know what to do with the portfolio when they got done, because they built some prototype tech and they put it in the field. But they're an oil company; they don't do healthcare tech.
Right.
And so we heard about the portfolio, and I tried to acquire it from them, and we never could reach agreement on how to get the deal done. It's just too complex, so I kind of forgot about it. But along the way, they have a venture capital firm called Waid, and one of the guys go, "Hey, Lloyd, you're a former payment guy, right?" And I said, "Yeah, with Verifone." He goes, "Would you take a look at one of these companies we invested in?" I said, "Sure." And they're it's called PayTabs in Dubai. And they're now one of the largest credit card processors in the Middle East and growing like crazy.
Wow.
But we just keep going to the next country, like Sudan and Ethiopia and things like that. So I was an advisor to the company for a year, and then Aramco asked me to take their board seat and to represent them on the board. So I do that with PayTabs in Dubai. And, of course, I'm still trying to convince the Saudis to let me have that portfolio so I can do something with it. So that's kind of my
grease
goal.
the wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Do you spend much time over there?
I've spent some time.
Oh, really?
Dhahran and Bahrain, and so it's an interesting part of the world.
Yeah.
Rich in history.
Very rich and really moving like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
They're really adopting technology and implementing it into their systems for sure.
It's always been funny to me because whenever I went to Israel, the Israelis are amazing because they're like 9 million entrepreneurs. Every one of them's thinking about how to start a company. It's pretty crazy. And then you meet the Palestinians, and they're entrepreneurs. And so I made a comment one day in a session. I said, the Israelis and the Palestinians should team up.
Yeah.
Because you guys are crazy. And they all started laughing. I said, no, you guys are great entrepreneurs and you think the same way. So it's pretty interesting. So that's a part of the world that remains fascinating to me.
But just sounds like that you have a lot of expertise in patents.
Well, I have a lot in intellectual property, yeah, because I think about IP being the defense. Now, IP to me is not something I hide behind. Because some people say, well, I have a patent. If you try to copy me, I'll sue you. Well, a patent fight's only as good as how much money you have.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But intellectual property, it tells me from a marketing perspective, I have something unique that nobody has done before. When we were filing the patents on Critica, what typically happens is you negotiate with the patent office. You make your initial assertions. They come back and say, too broad. And so you submit again, they say still too broad. And then you submit a third time, and they say, finally, your assertions or your claims are narrow enough that we can accept you. When we filed our patent, and when that happens, it's called the notice of allowance. They allow you to submit. We submitted our patent and got a notice of allowance right away.
Wow. Oh, really?
Yeah. Without
but that just comes with expertise, right?
Well, also, I think we just got lucky with what we were saying we were going to do. No one tried to do before. That's kind of what our takeaway was.
I have a question about the vest, because in rugby I have one of those vests. I wear it. I checks my heart rate, checks like pretty much everything while you're running. And honestly, one of the things that I learned from rugby is you constantly are out of breath while you're playing in that game, right? You can never reach a certain point of being fit enough to where you're not out of breath, even 5 minutes into the game. So you basically just learn to be out of breath for 80 minutes, right? And it's nonstop, just
like NBA basketball,
breathing hard, but your body gets used to being out of breath, and you also get used to making quick decisions when you're tired, right? So like normal people, when they get tired or hot, they can't make a quick decision. They make bad decisions. But when you're playing rugby or any type of sport where you're exhausted that entire time, you learn how to make decisions. And
you don't have time to think about it.
Totally, exactly. Your body, it's just instant. Like you're running this way, you see somebody looping this way, you make a pass,
right?
Or you get hit, whatever, right? So, but I wonder if that had something to do with the patent you were working on, because they're everywhere now. All the soccer and rugby teams have them.
Yeah, I think. Well, this was a patent that Saudi Aramco designed, not me. I actually Samantha and her team did it, but I think that a lot of people watched what they were doing and said we can use that in athletics. That actually triggers another thought. I think that the next wave of technology I'm watching very carefully is biometrics.
Oh, yeah.
So the Apple Watch is maybe the first generation where you can read your heart rate, right? The next thing will be you can read the A1C. Now, right now, they've got the strip on your arm, but we're going to figure out a way to read your sugar levels without penetration. And I think that's going to be an order of magnitude. So if I have any type of problem, I'll have some biometrics on me that can monitor that. And where we're focused right now at Engage is the biometrics will tell us what your problem is. We send you a video to your phone right away and say, hey, your A1C is high. Eat a candy bar, right?
Here's something to do right now.
Height of
in a
moment,
90-second video.
Right? Height of interest, time of need. Height of interest, time of need. So right now, the doctor has to send it to you. I want the biometrics to tell you what's going on. Right.
Triggering the app in your phone.
Exactly. And
Whoa.
so to me, that's the next wave.
Dang.
You know, you're running a fever today. Your respiration's too high. You didn't sleep well last night. That's what's going to be, I think, really exciting.
Wow.
Is how biometrics change the way we live our lives.
How far off do you think we are before it's nano?
Well, I think first generation's here.
Yes.
The Apple Watch 7 to me, and a lot of the peripherals that now kind of go with it. Apple's actually working on their health app is just so you can have your medical record with you, because your medical record is really yours. It's not the hospital's. Right now, it's all in the hospital system. But it really should be on your phone, because then I can go to any doctor I want and say, what's your record? I'm glad you asked. Here it is right here. And I'll download it to you so you have it.
I'll tell you right now, so even before I was thinking about this pod, I was thinking, because Ken had told me just a little bit about you. But the question that's been in my mind was talking about patents. So it's real weird that you bring all this up, because I have this project I've been working on since 2017 that I think could be revolutionary, and you're talking about a lot of the functions of it. In fact, I've already started working on it, but I have no experience on patents or IP or anything like that.
Well, my advice is, if you think you have a unique idea, write it down and file it quickly, so that somebody else doesn't beat you to it.
How hard is it to file the idea?
It's nothing hard. I mean, it's a couple $1,000.
I could have Kate send you the same.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. All right.
So keep in mind that Thomas Edison is credited with inventing the television set, right?
Yeah.
But there was really Philo Farnsworth in Idaho that invented the television.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. He just didn't file in time.
Oh.
Yeah, he filed late.
Oh, so he had the idea. Edison somehow got the idea as well and filed it first.
Filed first. Yeah. It's in the United States. It's a first to file.
Of course. Yeah. Right. Okay, so
I always say at Apple, everybody kept notebooks by their desk. If you had an idea, you sketch it, write in the book right away.
Yeah, of course.
You take a picture of it, give it to the lawyers, they file right.
I have that in my book.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
so
if you've got a good idea. I always say if you can fit on a whiteboard, it's probably a good idea.
Oh, hell yeah, I can fit on a 3x5 card. Yeah. Nice. I can fit in my brain. With all the other shit in there, it's pretty crazy it fits. Well, man, that's wild.
Yeah.
I think that's coming soon too, because they can figure out in a decimal how much our brain can retain, and this first chip that they're talking about releasing, it should quantify it by 4 times. So if we can 4 times we're going to be better looking, we're going to be wittier, right. We're going to be and that's another thing we talked about on our last podcast is, I think the anxiety and all of these problems come from system overload, because we're not built to hold all of this information.
Humans were never designed to multitask.
Totally.
The whole framework is not designed for that. It's designed to focus. I need to kill to eat. Right. So I'm going to focus on killing an animal so I can eat. I mean, it's very, very reptilian part of our brain.
Yeah.
So when you have somebody to multitask, quite often they freak out about it and just don't handle it well. Now, I think there's a generation that's learning how to do it. I think the kids today, their brains are wired differently.
Yeah, 100%.
Than mine is, and maybe even yours is different than mine. But I'm saying every generation that's been exposed to technology, it rewires their brain a little bit. The neurons function differently.
Now with evolution, now it's every generation, whereas before it might be a couple before there was an iteration in the physical hardware. Yeah, 100%. I look at my son. How the hell do you know how to use that iPad so well? Or
I watched a 2-year-old sit in front of a Macintosh and pick up the mouse and start drawing. Yeah. We actually filmed it. What? This was in 1984. We're going, that's amazing. I mean, because you just kind of walked over and kind of...
Yeah, and already knew.
It was like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And you watch kids with iPhones today. So again, to me, if you kind of scroll back and take out all the turmoil and madness going on,
Right.
it's pretty amazing what's unfolding at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Because I always thought that if you ever had the sum of human knowledge available to you, then you ask young kids, what do you want to do with it?
Right.
What problem can you solve? Let's solve big problems together.
Hell yeah.
And I hope that someday that happens. I think the Russians and the Chinese and the Americans, if they ever got together and said, let's make a better world, imagine what would happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's coming. I have faith. I have hope for sure.
Yeah. Because honestly, and I'm sure when you were over in China, but I've met Chinese people. They don't hate us. I've met Russian people. They love
Yeah,
us.
as an individual, no one. It's all the narratives that the dinosaurs are imposing upon us.
I'll tell you a funny story. So, 3 of the top senators in 1989 made the same comment that NATO should not encroach further in Eastern Europe because it's only going to make the Russians feel uncomfortable.
Of course.
So what they should have done is to create a barrier of Switzerland-like countries, all neutral, right? Where you can run your business here, nobody has any weapons there, and just create these buffer zones.
Right.
Was their idea, and it was ignored. And so NATO kept kind of going further and further until, the Russians kind of looked around and said, I think we're surrounded.
Right.
Yeah, so you just, if you take the time to think of it, I mean, if we woke up one day and Russia was on the Canadian border and on the Mexican border and in the Caribbean, we might have a different perspective as well.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So you just try, I think that's one of the challenges is, are we willing to look on the other side of the table and say, what does it look like from over there?
Yeah, exactly.
In pretty much all topics.
Well, and it's crazy how much the media, because I mean, everywhere, even driving here today, I saw some lady with a bumper sticker that said, I stand with Ukraine, right? And it's like, there's so many countries that are at war right now, including Ethiopia, where you had 400,000 civilians murdered in like 1 month, but no one gives a shit about them.
Well,
Yeah.
Rwanda, you can just keep going on and on.
Yeah, it's
the
all
list,
over.
Armenia, there's so many countries at war right now, and nobody gives a shit about any of them. But you've got, the media owns people so much that one country goes to war with Russia, right? And you've got bumper stickers and flags. I mean, the Brighton building in Meridian, they have that like 100-foot by 100-foot flag hanging from their building.
But that's simple human nature. Yeah. Humans need something to stand for, and so when you own the machine, the Matrix machine, then you get to choose what story or narrative that you get to pop out there. Yeah. So again, it goes back to Buckminster Fuller. It's, hey, I see that it's happening, but I also think it's dissolving. It's collapsing.
It is, and hopefully something better will come out of that. But usually there's turmoil in the middle.
Bingo, and that's where the lessons are going to be learned.
Civil wars are fought, and
right.
I always say it's always funny when Americans lecture other countries on civil wars, because we fought maybe one of the most bloody civil wars that's ever been fought on earth.
Yeah.
We killed more people per capita in the United States Civil War than anybody else. And so it's just always funny to me that we lecture people. It's like, okay.
You really have to go down there to see that, though. Like in Buckhead, when I was there, I did
Georgia? Buckhead in Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did the tour there, and they said that there was a general that went through, and I can't remember his name.
Sherman.
Sherman. He thought it was such a beautiful town that he decided not to burn it.
Correct.
So it's like one of the oldest towns in the South that didn't get destroyed by the Civil War. So.
Wow.
Savannah, Georgia is that way as well.
Yeah.
Savannah and Charleston, because as a young lieutenant, he was stationed there, and people were kind to him. And so when they landed, he said, don't burn Savannah, don't burn Charleston, but burn everything between there and Atlanta.
Holy cow.
And so that's, you never know how things play out. So,
but then that goes back to your point, is most people don't know their history.
Right.
Civil War is a million years ago.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to compare it to.
At a bar maybe a year ago, and he seemed really down. I could just feel it when I stood next to him. So I started talking to him, And he was like, "This is the worst time in human history." I was like, "What?" I was like,
no
"Man,
way.
I spent 2 weeks in my amazing apartment. You know, like I had food delivered to my house every day.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "This is the best time in human history. You catch a cold and you get to stay in an amazing house with air conditioning and a fire if you need it, and blankets and a bed."
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, just hearing, like, my great grandfather came from Denmark because they made it illegal to have multiple wives, and he practiced polygamy. He had 3 wives. So then he came to eastern Montana and then Soda Springs, Idaho, because Montana made it illegal. And then he went to Idaho. He just kept moving.
Soda Springs is lots of LDS down there.
Totally, yeah. So he ended up in Soda Springs and had multiple wives, and you know, lived out the rest of his life.
Yeah.
But you know, the stories I heard of, like, my grandfather stealing ketchup from the local restaurant to put it in hot water so they could have tomato soup back in the day.
Wow.
Because he was born in 1924. So they went through
Great Depression.
Yeah, Great Depression. And I mean, you got, what was it, 3 kids from the first wife, 15 kids from the second wife, and 9 kids from the third wife. Like, it would be a free-for-all on who gets to eat. But I would love to, I mean, I wish he wouldn't have passed away, but it would have been great to get him in a podcast. But the craziest thing is he graduated college when he was 16, and he lied about his age and joined the military.
Right,
yeah, he joined the military and fought 4 years, and his first wife waited for him all 4 years.
Wow.
Crazy. It was like a year he spent in POW camp.
Wow.
It's an amazing generation, no question. You wonder if the next generations would stand up like that. So that's another thing about what's your moral compass.
Yeah.
So,
but maybe in the future there won't be a need for that.
I hope so. I mean, I think that whenever it becomes a zero-sum game to take something from someone else for your needs, that's when it'll change, I think.
Yeah.
Which is why I believe technology is going to change that.
Yeah.
At some point, a good example is I'd love to see a national health care plan in the U.S.
Yeah.
I think it's wrong that I have to spend so much money to solve illness. Now, the flip side is I think some illnesses are so bad that you shouldn't spend money on the people to try to save them. They can't be saved.
Right. That's
So
a great point. I'm with you there.
There's got to be a triage element to this. And I know that sounds heartless, but the truth is you can see somebody lose all their wealth just trying to solve a problem that can't be solved.
Yeah, and they end up just losing it all anyway.
Losing it all anyway. Or leaving their family destitute at some time.
To me, what doesn't make sense is we have all this money for war and not for healthcare.
Yeah, I used to make a comment when I was the head of education that if you cut the defense budget by 10%, you could send every kid in America to college for free.
10%.
Yeah, think about that.
Might even be
less now when you made that statement.
Yeah,
Well, college is become more expensive.
Oh, yeah, that's
too.
true.
But I'm just saying, on a relative basis, you could cut 10%. You'd still be the largest military in the world by order of magnitude, but you could have funded all these kids to go to school. And if you want to solve crime and poverty, educate.
100%.
When I was at Apple, we actually tested a theory. We said, let's put computers in a very poor black community in Houston in the classrooms, and let's put the computers in the homes and see what that does to test scores. It was called the Apple Classroom of Tomorrow, ACOT. And we actually funded some phone lines in the homes because they didn't have them for the modems to work, right? Totally. Wow. And that year we saw test scores go up in that single environment. And we knew then that IQ is not all genetic, it's environmental as well. Mm-hmm. And so if you can create aspiration and provide tools of access, you can change the outcome. Yeah. And I think the great thing about technology is if you can try to create aspiration and change the outcomes, that's what's always driven me in everything I've tried to do.
Yeah, of course.
So
I've seen it a lot playing sports. So, I mean, I've had, because we have like team bonding things, like where you have to like tell a story or like write down a situation with one of the guys on your team. And I've had guys on my team that didn't even know how to spell my name. And it's one of the easiest, most recognized names in the world. They spelled it C-A-N.
Really?
Oh, yeah, Ken. He's like, Ken. And I'm like, no, my name is Ken, K-E-N. But, like, I played with this guy for, like, 9 months, and he had no idea how to spell my first name.
Funny.
Praise.
I know,
Bless his heart.
But I've seen so many instances like that.
Yeah, of course.
You know, like, I played football with guys that, couldn't pass an ACT.
Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't read.
Exactly. But
Herschel Walker doesn't have any kids. He's got.
Yeah. We all have our strengths, right?
Elon Musk is one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
I think he's truly fascinating. He's kind of the Edison of our time, but he's hysterical because at the same time he's having a baby with Grimes, he gets one of his executives pregnant. She has twins, and then when they ding him about it, he goes, I'm trying to solve the underpopulation problem. he literally changes the narrative. And I thought, that's amazing.
That's so good. Makes light. He's like, why would you even care what's going on in my life?
Yeah,
like,
it's my life. It's my kids. I got to pay for them. What do you care?
Yeah, exactly. That's
but
his response.
It was changing the narrative. He goes, yes, I'm solving the underpopulation problem. And then somebody goes, oh, I didn't know there was one.
There definitely is. I haven't got Taco Bell
got
drunk
you.
at like midnight.
Oh my goodness.
It was so funny. But I mean, I loved him on Saturday Night because he says, I don't know why they've got me on here hosting. I did design a rocket that could land on Mars, and I am boring a tunnel, and I did start the first electric car company. And he's going on, and finally the crowd's just laughing with him. He says, but I don't know why I'm on TV.
Yeah, geez, I'm only the most interesting person, in the world.
That his SpaceX documentary is one of my favorite documentaries of all time. Because I mean, he dumped $100 million into it, and then it didn't work out. And he has a meeting. Everyone thinks they're going to get yelled at, and he goes, "I truly believe in this," and doubles down on it.
Gonna do it again.
Yeah.
Well, there's a Mars documentary too where he goes, in order to go to Mars, you have to take off in a rocket. You have to be able to land it. You have to be able to take off again. You have to be able to land it back on Earth. Yeah. And as he's saying that, you're watching the Dragon do that, where it takes off and it comes back. The landing struts go out. It lands on and it's like, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Now we know how to get there.
Yeah, and he's gotten the cost from $100 and something $1,000 all the way down to $9,000 per launch. So.
Yeah, I mean, what he's done for NASA is crazy. That's why government should get out of some businesses.
Oh yeah, 100%. Why are they in that?
Space should be a commercial enterprise.
Yeah.
And I think he's proven that. So.
Yeah.
What do you think about uploading consciousness?
When somebody dies, you mean, where they sustain it? Or
well, imagine we could send our consciousness like an email. So to me, like I just watched this Joe Rogan podcast this week where he showed the map of the asteroids. It's pretty. How are you going to get a rocket from here to there without hitting one of those? Imagine this. Imagine just sending your consciousness like an email to another avatar that's sitting in Mars.
I think that'll be possible. I think that
like beam me up, Scotty.
I said in my lifetime, I think that our bodies will be 10% silicon.
Bingo.
I think in your lifetime, it may be 40.
Yeah, dang.
At some point, I think carbon life forms will evolve as they'll be half silicon, half carbon.
Yeah, and so that blew my mind when
the
you said
silicon
that.
side of that will be able to transfer data and consciousness, and and I believe in quantum computing. I think that someday we might even be able to define the way people travel using quantum computing.
Yeah, for sure.
So
it's all unfolding perfectly.
I'm just bummed I won't be around for most of it.
I think you will. I think you will.
I was on the edge of watching this stuff, but I think it's fun.
They've already teleported through 3D printing unliving objects to space. So it's coming. It's coming for sure. Yeah.
Like you said, the first iterations are here.
Elon Musk has a great line. He goes, "If physics allows it, it can be done."
Right.
Okay. I met Fred Smith, who was the founder of FedEx, and he had a more simple version. He said, "If I can think it, someone can build it."
100%. Wow. Yeah, that's true.
Some great lines.
Movies is how they come up with a lot of like the cell phones from Star Trek, the little deals in the back. Somebody's like, "Oh, we can build something like
flip
that."
phones. Well,
yes.
And if you go back and if you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is a Stanley Kubrick film. one of the things you see the astronaut looking at, something called a news pad, iPad.
Wow.
Looks like, and he's reading the news on that. Okay, that was 1966 or 68 when the movie came out. Well, so the iPad came out in 2012, I think, 10.
Something around that.
Something like that. But it takes that long,
right? Concept to fruition,
to engineering reality, at scale too.
Do you think that people like that he was picking up? I think that, again, go back to what you're saying. Stories and movies are stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. So even the concept of, because I like the book way more than the movie 2001.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
the book's incredible.
In fact, it filled in the gaps that you were
exactly.
Going on.
The movie was too obscure.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, I think that those artists, they're getting downloads where they get those ideas. Like, ideas aren't ours.
I think some of those, I think you made a comment a minute ago, which I think is totally true. Humans convey information through storytelling.
Right.
And movie makers are great storytellers.
Right.
Or if it's a bad movie, it's because it was a bad story. Right. Also, I think there are only so many stories in the world, which is why Cinderella and Pretty Woman are the same story.
Yes.
Right. Made again. But I do think that some of these authors and artists have a part of their brain that has aspiration and innovation. Like Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, yeah.
An example of all the things he was drawing and imagining, a helicopter by looking at a hummingbird.
Yeah.
Right? Watching a hummingbird move in 3 axes and kind of goes, someday I think we'll be able to build a machine. But he was studying how the wings would adjust and, things like that. Wow. So I think that some of them do that. I think some authors actually wander through labs and see what's, in development. Right. Mm-hmm. Steve first saw the Macintosh. It was called a Xerox Star. And it was sitting in the Palo Alto Research Center. And it was a graphical user interface machine with a mouse. And Steve hired the team that developed the Star, and they became the original Mac team.
Where did he raise the capital to get the ship off the launching pad?
There's a guy named Mike Markkula, who's pretty famous. Mike was the chairman of Apple, came out of Intel. Oh. And he raised the original money for Apple. Okay. Yeah, and Kleiner Perkins came in. A bunch of people, came in on the deal.
But it all started with an idea.
Right. We actually started with an Apple I.
Yeah.
Which was Steve Wozniak built the original Apple I. He was still working for HP then.
But he was just building stuff like out of a catalog.
It was a homebrew kit. Yeah, exactly. They go to Fry's Electronics and buy parts. Yeah. In a little wooden box. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Life is weird. How it just unfolds and how, a hobby changed the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always say that the Macintosh did not save Apple, and neither did the iPhone. What saved Apple was the 99-cent song.
Oh, man.
Break an album down to 99 cents and then load it on a device that you could then hear music. So it was the business model that Steve was able to break that I think was extraordinary.
Yeah. But even if you look even from when they went public, through all the short-term ups and downs, it was always in an upward trajectory.
Yeah, overall. Yeah. No, it's always been, and it's like I told Ian and Caitlin, I said, don't try to follow my career because it was a moment in time.
Right.
That you couldn't recreate. And that's what when I'm with my friends at Apple, we talk about that moment in time.
Oh my God, what a moment
we didn't know how to say no. We were facing some of the largest corporations in the world, like IBM, trying to crush us.
Whoa.
We said, bring it, And nothing thrilled me more than I beat IBM. Funny story. They had cameras rolling in Nashville, Tennessee when they did the bid opening. And they'd already heard that IBM opened for $753. And then when they opened the Apple envelope and it said $750.50, the IBM guys, are you fucking kidding me? They beat us by 50 cents.
You hear
and then they looked at the cameras and go, can you guys not run that part of the show?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because that is look at that,
think about
50
that.
cents
Think
changed
about
the
that.
world again,
50
and you were
cents.
there, man.
Yeah,
That was yours.
Yeah,
damn, oh damn, that's awesome.
That was pretty funny.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Holy cow, man, we got an angel here. Oh my lord.
So it was fun.
Wow. Well, thanks so much, man.
Oh,
It was an absolute pleasure.
This is a kick. I enjoyed this.
Yeah, good.
Thanks for the
Man.
invitation, and nice to meet you.
Nice to
was,
meet you too. Yeah,
Max in the
good
middle.
stuff.
Yeah,
There
Max in
we
the
go.
middle.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much, Lloyd. Man, good stuff,
My
man.
pleasure.
Hope to hang out with you
Well,
again,
I'll stay
man.
in touch on some of our ventures.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Man, I look forward to it. And after 90 days, we'll crack some of that scotch.
Absolutely.
For me, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, man.
Thanks.
Well, right
Appreciate
on.
it.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks.